Good evening to you both. And let's begin with a dominant discussion in Alberta post-election, that being separation talk, coupled with the easing of rules around referendums, contentious issues that have caught the attention of First Nations.
It was never designed to, nor does it breach treaty agreements. The Citizen Initiative Act, I think, is the purest form of democracy we have.
A response to a letter from two First Nations leaders accusing Danielle Smith of attempting to manufacture a national unity crisis by enabling a referendum on separatism, adding, "Be advised, your irresponsible statements and actions are in breach of Treaties 6, 7, and 8.
Any Albertan can put an idea forward on any topic, and if they're able to get the number of signatures, then it would go to a vote, and that includes a vote of members of First Nations, and we encourage Indigenous peoples to participate in the process.
Comments Thursday that came in at the same time. A referendum rally was planned for the legislature grounds, one attended by about a dozen people.
We're tired of the energy being stolen, and stopped, and so I think we got a good chance.
If you don't believe in Canada and you are a tiny, tiny fringe minority, then this government is spending too much time on you already.
The opposition accusing the Premier of pandering to her base. Bob, I'll start with you. Given the sea of blue in Alberta, it's understandable there would be considerable discontent over the Conservatives not being elected to government. But what's your read on the drive behind separation talk? Somebody has to be funding this, motivated enough to put money behind it.
Yeah, it's been around for a long time in different names, and I recognize that one guy on the poster is the guy that went down to talk to President Trump about joining U.S. So, but I don't know why. I guess they have to let them vote, but I don't think it's going to go anywhere. It's been around for a long time. I've seen it many different versions of it. I guess Preston Manning kind of pumps it up a little bit as well, but I don't see it going anywhere. It's probably a small minority of people.
Tom, what kind of opportunity then is presenting itself to Mark Carney and his new government when it comes to responding to the demands of Danielle Smith and the degree of discontent emanating out of Alberta?
I think a lot of Albertans are very interested in this national energy corridor, and he's going to have to deliver on that sooner rather than later. I think if we have something concrete like that, the few dumb people who think we should separate will go back into the woodwork. In my own riding, it was very close. In fact, the Liberals in Calgary Centre were leading for a while, and then Greg McLean managed to squeak it in. And of course, Corey Hogan's in there, and he's got to be in cabinet. I mean, there's no question. He's a well-spoken, smart guy, and he's from Alberta, so I think he'll be there. The whole idea of a referendum with a smaller thing reminds me of the days when somebody tried to get Stockwell Day to change his name to Doris Day. We're going to wind up with the dumbest things on the referendum agenda, and I can't wait to see Danielle Smith having to put some of those down in print and actually have us vote on them.
Okay, Bob, now in terms of the election generally, what strikes you about the outcome, especially where Alberta is concerned?
Well, I think we all knew what was going to happen in Alberta, and it looked like the Conservatives got quite a few votes across the country. I saw it all coming, and but people were just a little bit leery of the anger coming from Pierre Poilievre, and especially with the Trumpy stuff going on. And I think people just backed off a little bit because we saw his predicted lead just evaporate. But I think we all knew that Alberta was going to carry blue, and that's just the way we are out here. So.
Tom, if there is a key takeaway for any of the federal parties in the wake of the election, what do you feel it would be?
This is a great country, and I got to tell you, I had dinner with one of my faculty colleagues, a young guy, and he was offered a job at the University of Montana in Bozeman, and he was offered a job at the University of Calgary, and he's kissing the earth now that he took the job here instead. So I think what all the parties need to realize is that we have a lot more that unites us and than divides us, and this guy is certainly very glad that he chose Canada.
All right. Well, many Albertans might still be fired up over the election outcome. Flames of another sort are on the radar ahead of Emergency Preparedness Week, and the Canadian Red Cross sharing 3 tips. The first is to be prepared for community-specific risks, such as wildfires or flooding. Make a plan, including where to evacuate, and create an emergency kit with food, water, clothing, and important documents. Having all this in place can help reduce stress during an emergency.
People that are better prepared have a better outcome following these events. So they're a little bit more self-reliant in knowing what to expect because they have a plan. They know they have some of the things that they would need. The
Red Cross says only 4 out of 10 Canadian households are prepared for an emergency. And with it as dry as it is in Alberta, government officials say they're definitely concerned about the threat of wildfire.
We'll probably be adding some advisories and some fire restrictions this weekend because we want to make sure that we're on top of things. We want to be proactive and make sure that we don't let a fire season get ahead of us on this year.
And in terms of being prepared, the minister says the province will be ready by May 15th with a full slate of wildland firefighters, many of whom are already set to be on the ground working. Tom, given the prevalence of everything from wildfires to flooding, nasty storms of all sorts, what's your takeaway from that stat that only 40% of Canadian households are actually prepared for an emergency?
Yeah, this is an individual family responsibility. I don't see the government handing out prepper kits with, canned food and meals ready to eat and stuff like that. So, of course, you should have a go bag. And they made an interesting point about your documents. So many of our documents are electronic now. We forget about them. But, there's stuff like your driver's license and your passport and your house insurance documents and things like that you might want to put inside that go bag. Interestingly, on the fire thing, I'm reading a fascinating book. It's called Dry, and it's about what would happen if in California the taps suddenly went dry. And the interesting thing is the whole premise of this book is that people go crazy. They start becoming water zombies and so on, and they treat each other terribly. I haven't gotten to the end of it, but I know it's not going to end well. What I want to say is we tend to be pretty good when we have emergencies. I remember, when we had wildfires in Fort McMurray and so on, the University of Calgary putting people up in their residences. So again, the good news about Canada is that we are pretty civilized when it comes to that, and I don't think we're going to see the dry scenario happen.
Well, and Bob, we are heading into the first really warm weekend of the season. There are areas of the province that saw very little moisture through April. Who should be shouldering the responsibility of ensuring many more Albertans are prepared for contending with an emergency?
Well, definitely all levels of government, emergency responders for sure, get the messaging out on whatever means. Mainstream media, of course, and any social media channels, and just let people be aware of what's coming or what possibly could come. And we all just need, like Tom said, well, we always pull together and help each other out, but it's important to be ready and just be able to react quickly.
One of the Liberal Party's election promises could lead to more tourists visiting hotspots like Banff and Jasper. On the campaign trail, Mark Carney pledged that access to national parks and historic sites would be free this summer. He also promised price reductions for camping sites and national parks from June until August. This comes at a time when Banff is pushing for more people to take transit to the mountain community. And the mayor says parking capacity will be stretched with even more visitors arriving by vehicle.
We continue to advocate to the federal and provincial governments to help with implementing some sort of mass transit from Calgary to the mountains. And whether that's bus or rail, one now, one later, we are just full of vehicles in the summer.
Banff is adding 9 more buses to help people get around town and connect with Canmore as well as Lake Louise. Now, Tom, it's not just the added holiday crowd. There's also the G7 summit to consider in mid-June. With world leaders gathering in K-Country, demonstration zones are being set up outside that huge security zone. One appears to be the area of Banff Central Park. Just how gong show busy a summer could this end up being?
It could be insane. I hate to correct the mayor of Banff, but there is transit that gets you out there. I did a little research on this. There's a bus line called On It that leaves from downtown Calgary, takes you to Elk Street in Banff. $12.50 one way. Now, you cannot drive for that, right? I guarantee you, unless you really packed your car full of people, and $10 for seniors. So, we may see more of an uptake in transit. Of course, that does leave you, in downtown Banff. And if you're trying to go hiking somewhere, how are you going to get there? And what if you have a bunch of kids? I think it is going to be a real gong show. One thing I learned is that it is possible now to check online to see if there's parking in some of the parkades in Banff. So there's a site, banffparking.ca. I can pretty well tell you in the middle of this summer, if it's past 10 a.m., it's going to come up with 0 spaces available.
Yeah, we all know how congested it can be in the middle of the summer. Now, Bob, what's it going to take for all those planning the summer trip to Banff to heed this call from the mayor? Leave the car at home.
Well, I think there's a little bit of buy-in, and like Tom said, the bus is quite convenient, but we're a car city. I think what it may take is for you to drive out there and they can say to you, sorry, you can't come in. There's no spots. Go away. Turn around, go back, try something else. I don't know what, like Albertans like their cars. They like to take everything in there and their provisions and go park and then hike. So the bus seems to be taking off. The train, that's a long-term play. But it does have to change. It's crazy out there.
Yeah, it could be quite the summer for sure. Okay, one more topic with the Oilers punching their ticket into the second round. Some Edmonton fans emerging from Rogers Place may notice an interesting odor wafting from across the street. Victory. Yes, the apparent smell of victory. A restaurant chain is sharing this champion room spray with customers.
People have kind of lost faith that there's going to be a Canadian win, and we just want to try and instill some humor into it.
Not quite as bad as a hockey dressing room, but pretty close. It has its familiar odor. It smells like atmosphere.
Now, if the scent of champagne, cheap lager, and sweaty hockey gear isn't the ticket,
do you cheer for a high-character team that refuses to play with a lead? Can your nervous system not tell the difference between being on the penalty kill and being attacked by a bear? If any of these resonate with you, you might need an emotional support playoff chicken.
Yeah, you heard that right. This Sherwood Park woman is selling emotional support playoff chickens. And within 24 hours of her social media post, Ashley received 30 different orders, as many as she can see in a month.
And that's just kind of another, I think, amazing thing about this fan community, especially like the way that these shared experiences really just draw us together.
Sinclair discovered the hobby a couple years ago while pregnant with her son. Bob, how stressed do you get watching playoff hockey, and is it enough to warrant the need for a crocheted emotional support chicken?
Well, I'll admit this year, Michael, I'm not that stressed at all, and I can go to bed before the game's over and find out who won in the morning. Now, if the Flames were in, I might want an emotional support chicken, but I think in Calgary we would probably have an emotional support ribeye or prime ribs.
Okay, Tom. Regarding the so-called victory room spray, what do you make of the creative extent some in the business community are going to celebrate the spirit of the playoffs?
This brings back amazing memories for me. Years ago in New York, I was sent to interview a very elegant woman, the vice president of Charles of the Ritz, at her office overlooking Park Avenue. And they were peddling a thing called Aroma Disc. And they looked like CDs, and you could put them in, and you could have the smell of popcorn popping, or you could have Christmas trees and so on. And right toward the end of the interview, I decided to say, well, do you have anything like maybe the smell of wet dog? And she pulled herself up to her full elegant height and said, I think this interview is over. So anyway, I did research this whole thing about scents. And even in my book, Techno Creep, I found that the St. Louis Rams, and this is like 12 years ago, were pumping the odor of cotton candy into the ventilation system of their stadium. And what they discovered is it made people buy more cotton candy, but also buy more drinks, buy more burgers. So this whole idea of scent marketing or aroma shaping, there are companies that do this. One is called Scent Air. And, maybe they should just pump it into the whole stadium up there.
All right. We have, gentlemen, 30 seconds. So 15 each.
Winners.
Pick a winner or loser. Go ahead, Bob.
Well, I'm going to have to give the Oilers and Edmonton the winners, and the losers probably the National NDP Party, because they seem to be nothing but a faint memory.
All right. Tom, take us home.
Donald Trump, of course, was the loser for proposing a medal for women who have a lot of children. It's an exact copy of a Nazi Germany policy, the Cross of Honor of the German Mother. And you got a bronze medal for 4 or 5 children, silver for 6 or 7, gold for 8 or more. And of course, if there was a male version, Elon Musk would have the platinum one, supposedly with 100 children out there.
Okay. Gentlemen, we have to leave it there. Have a great weekend.
See you, Michael. Bye, Tom.
Bye, guys.